Or homeless ladies.
Fuck off.
All right, welcome to meeting 99, everyone. We got some great stuff, lots of Linux this week, and it's really, I love the slides this week. But we have the wrong title.
It's not virtual machines.
Well, we're going back, but that's fine. We're just gonna go over a couple of things real quick. We have Smash Tournament right after this meeting.
Smash Club.
Smash Club, yes. So come to that. We also will have pizza at that, so come for free pizza because we ordered a lot. We're going to Mason High School 2 times this month. We're going to teach them a little bit. 3 times? Yeah. All right, we're going there 3 times this month, and we're going to teach them a little bit about reverse engineering.
If you guys need service hours, there will be service hours for people who go, so please let me know.
Yeah, is there like a Slack channel for that outreach?
That'd be a message.
Okay.
There's outreach, but it's private for some reason.
Well, there's 2 different. Is the high school CTF?
Oh yeah, the high school CTF channel is probably the correct one.
Yeah.
Okay, so
hop in the high school CTF channel if you need service hours and you're interested in helping out.
So absolutely hop on that. We have plenty of room. We are doing the NSA Codebreaker Challenge later on this month. Last year we did that, and it was a ton of fun. We had around 20 people doing it in the lab at one point, and I think we came in 6th overall.
We came in 7th in the nation last year.
Is Zach here?
So that'll be a ton of fun. You can learn a little bit about reverse engineering if it's anything like last year. CBTS CTF is later on the 20th. That is a capture the flag event that is going on at the Innovation Hub, which is somewhere around here, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Teams of 4. I think you can still register if you talk to some of the teachers in the College of IT or some of the teachers in the College of Engineering.
If you haven't done CTF before, just find some people in this room tonight.
It's supposed to be friendly to beginners and for more advanced people, so hop on that if you want to. Northrop Grumman recruiting event is going on later. We are going to be doing the demo for that. We're going to do a DAuth demo, I think, like we did here the first week. Pico CTF 2019. If you want to get involved or learn a little bit about capture the flag, or just want to practice your security skills, this is absolutely what you should do. They do a beginner-friendly CTF that goes all the way into more advanced exploitation topics. Ton of fun. OSU CTF registration is closing soon, and that's also Hack Ohio at that event.
No.
No?
That's a different one.
Separate? Okay. Well,
Do you have a team for that one?
No, they just announced on their Slack.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So I guess we're going to do that too. We're also going to do a visit to GE Aviation later on in the next few months. The NSA is coming to visit us in, I believe, October or November.
The date's right there.
Oh, it is? Oh, it's right there. It's October. And we also have Battelle coming to visit later on this semester, and they're probably going to show us some really cool stuff about reverse engineering in a live environment on real equipment. All right, weekly news. Aaron.
So, got some weekly news. I like these ones this week. They're pretty good. So there's a power plant, specifically a nuclear power plant in Ukraine, where there's a lot of electricity for a very low cost. So their employees actually hooked up the power plant network to the internet. It's a horrible idea. It's a vital piece of infrastructure. I think it's actually the way Ukraine classifies their stuff is a little weird, but it just said online that it's classified as vital infrastructure, so that's why it was a really big deal for them. They're worried that attackers might have pivoted through those machines and attacked their industrial network, but they actually just hooked up the machines to their admin network, which was separate from their actual power plant network. So I think that was their saving grace. Then the Ukrainian Secret Service broke in and just found 2 PCs with 11 RX 470s in it. No one's been arrested. Yeah, it's pretty skep. This is not the first time this has happened. This happens all over the place because the biggest thing holding people back from mining is the electricity cost.
But if you're at a nuclear power plant.
Yeah, if you're somewhere like a hydro dam or a nuclear power plant where electricity is really cheap,
There you go.
You can do it for almost free. I think in Russia, people were arrested for using their supercomputer to mine crypto. So it is not the first time this has happened, but I don't think anyone's been arrested or charged. I think it's army people, so they haven't really been public about that. Next up, Eerie Siri. So Apple has been hiring contractors and just giving them Siri conversations for grading to be like, oh, did she get it right? Not a lot of people knew about this, and you were like automatically signed up for it. So all your stuff was getting sent to these contractors. So there was a big uproar about it, and Apple has kind of switched the way they handle that stuff to have people opt into it instead of just sending everyone's data to it. So it wasn't Apple exclusively, it was also Amazon and Google. I know it said specifically that Amazon had Echo. That's their device.
Alexa.
They were sending their recordings to contractors, and they would get through like 1,000 recordings a shift, like each person, which is a lot. And some of it included drug deals, sex, and domestic abuse, which is really bad because I don't think they reported it. I think, like specifically the domestic abuse part. So they were just listening to it and not doing anything about it.
You know, Google is also doing the same stuff, collecting your voices. In fact, if y'all have a Google account and you ever use like the Google Voice to do stuff, you can go on to Google and get all of your voice clips and listen to yourself.
And your location
it's
data.
Now opt in, and your location data, and yeah,
it's alarming.
Google.
Google records everything. I don't know if you're aware of that. If you go into your Google account and look at all the data they have on you, it's terrifying.
They leaked a bunch of the Google recordings earlier this year, I think, in, I want to say Belgium.
Interesting.
They were just
Yeah, I know a bunch of people, or a bunch of parents are suing either Google or Amazon because they're basically listening to their children. So if you have one of these, it's in your house, so they can hear everything.
Fourth Amendment.
Yeah, dude. Throw those things away.
Insult Jeff Bezos on your Amazon list.
Well, yeah, they also said that people were telling their Alexas to play porn on their mobile devices. I thought that was very interesting. So next up, we had some Twitter hacks. So specifically, the CEO got his account compromised, and he retweeted. So that's apparently a really big problem. Is a lot of Nazis and white supremacists on Twitter right now. They're trying to handle that. So basically, they hacked his account and had him retweet that, and then I think there was another like dozen or so tweets that they had where it said some not so nice things.
Classic SIM swap.
Yeah, so the way this happened was a SIM swap attack. Basically, your SIM card is just a unique number, and you can pay the cell provider to switch the number that associates your phone number with that SIM card number. So if you get them to do that, which there's a lot of people that you can pay them to do it, basically all the phone or all SMS messages, instead of going to the other person's phone, it'll just go to you. So basically that bypasses like all two-factor authentication messages.
If you can call and you can convince them that like you lost your SIM card, you need a new SIM card sent to you. I mean that's a really popular way of popping people.
I know like a few months ago this was a really big problem. I think it was Verizon. This one was specifically AT&T. They said they have a really big problem with that.
It's too easy.
Yeah. So Twitter specifically, you can send tweets through SMS. So they don't even need the account. They just need the SIM swap, and then if they have that little feature enabled, they can just text Twitter and be like, hey, these are my tweets. Or you can retweet people. It was also claimed by the Chuckling Squad, which I had never heard of. Apparently, like whenever this happened, they went on like a week-long spree of just hacking a bunch of high-profile accounts. So that was pretty interesting. I think that's all for news. There's some other stories if you want to look at those. Want to do the Linux stuff?
Are we doing virtual machines?
No. It's Linux.
All right, so here's our agenda for tonight. We're going to start out with what you can do if you weren't here last week, because there's a little bit of onboarding to get to where we are technically. So if you weren't here last week, shame on you. Previously, we created Linux virtual machines, which everyone here should already be familiar with. And if you weren't here, just go ahead and Google Windows Linux subsystem, and you'll get some instructions on how to install what is effectively a tiny console-only virtual machine. It's only like 2-3 commands you have to run, and then you have to install something through the Windows Store. And also, if you weren't here last week, all of our meetings are recorded to our YouTube channel. We record them through our live streams. So what is Linux? Linux is a free and open source kernel. Kernel is the piece of software that sits between the rest of the operating system and the actual hardware layer. So Linux itself is actually used to build operating systems without like reinventing the fork. That's a fun joke. The fork's a kernel function that a lot of people expect to exist. It doesn't hide anything from the user by default. That is, the operating system is based on Linux. Windows, for example, will hide like just massive amounts of stuff from you. So if you ever like if you ever play around with the Windows registry or Windows drivers at all, it's a lot harder just to like introspect anything versus Linux. OS X is similar to Linux because they're both based on what's called Unix, which is an old IBM system. But OS X also abstracts a lot of stuff from the user.
What's that YouTube channel name again?
What?
Cyber at UC.
Oh, it's just the club name, but with a T. That's on our website. So Linux is basically an open source clone of an old system called Unix, which Bell Labs invented in like the 80s, 70s.
Was it System 5 or BSD?
That's who Franco worked for.
Yeah, Franco worked there. Our club advisor actually worked at Bell Labs back in the day. So maybe he saw some of this old code. Excuse me. So, the command line, the one. Yeah, so Linux underneath is mostly just C with sprinkles of C++ and assembly. You can actually reach into the OS, it's just a huge program, and call in a lot of the functions directly, maybe not all of them. It's also mostly POSIX compliant. POSIX is the Portable Operating System Interface Standard, something like that, which means it's very easy to move a lot of programs between different versions of Linux without doing a whole lot of changes to the code base. It's also originally made by a single programmer in his free time. It was Linus Torvalds, and he just named it after himself, but he changed the last letter of his name to an X. So you can actually download this right now. You shouldn't, because it's huge. And as you can see, this is actually from GitHub. It has infinite contributors, which I was not expecting. So where is Linux? It's everywhere. Really, it's everywhere. It runs in our lab entirely runs on Linux right now. Chrome OS and Android are really just Linux with fancy libraries on top of them. Game consoles like PS3 have actually shipped with Linux out of the box, and you can install more onto them. Most game consoles currently, except for Xbox, obviously, are really just super modified versions of Linux. Pretty much every server on the internet currently runs Linux, or more companies are moving towards, and there are still a big Windows market share in servers, but it's getting way smaller every year. Pretty much every supercomputer right now runs Linux, but there's super custom versions. That's the spaceships. I didn't put that. You put that.
Me. But yeah.
Do they actually?
Yeah.
I thought they ran DOS.
I don't know. I think the ISS has a lot of Linux stuff on
Okay.
it.
I was gonna say, my friend who works at NASA right now, she's
Yeah, I'm sure with ROS, everything is modern that they're doing is running Linux. So there are literally companies who cannot hire enough people who know how to use Linux because it's such an in-demand skill. So why is Linux? Why use Linux? It's free, so because it's free, companies will try to reduce costs everywhere. So that means they're going to try to deploy it wherever they can. And because it's open source, those companies can improve it. So that happens a lot with like Red Hat Enterprise Linux. I think Red Hat actually started out as a non-Linux-based software company, and then they ended up doing that. So because it's open source, anyone who wants to make changes to it can. There's just a constant stream of improvements happening to it, and it releases like every month or so another patch set. Also, it's pure, so imagine being able to install every single piece of software that your operating system recommends instantaneously just by typing the name of that software. It's a lot easier than searching for it on the internet and then trying to not get viruses like Windows. Yeah.
There's a tidbit on the fact that it's free. So when you buy a laptop, it comes with Windows, and that price is actually included in the price of the laptop. But I think if it's within a week, you can request from Microsoft for a refund on your Windows installation, and then just install Linux on top of that. It was like a huge thing in the 90s.
Yeah, I don't think they do that anymore.
I think they do. Really?
I think they
That
got
would
rid of it.
surprise me. But that's a crazy idea.
So the old thing was that they expected the hardware vendors to know that the user could request a refund on Linux or Windows, but then nobody actually knew about this because no one had ever tried to get a refund for Windows. So there was a big event in like 2000. 2000?
So,
It wasn't like that long ago. So yeah, it's also, as you can see, way easier to program in. So this is an example program that Aaron whipped up, just the hello world in C, and versus like actually installing all of Visual Studio Code and then going through like all the Microsoft documentation. You can just type this, and then if you have any questions, you just type in like man and then the function name on the command line. Just gives you the manual page for it, which we'll get to in a bit. And then you can just compile it because most versions of Linux include multiple compilers, so it's super easy. So why isn't Linux? There's a lot of people who haven't adopted it yet. So it's not usually a consumer go-to. This is actually starting to change with Android and Chrome OS. Yeah. Is that Linux based? I think so. It better be. I said it was. It also requires learning how to use the command line to be super efficient at it, which makes it have a very high initial learning investment, as you can see from this chart. Linux is up there. Mac and Windows are down here. So if you have your Linux distributions ready, go ahead and open them, your virtual machines. We're going to jump into the terminal. You guys ready for this?
Not ready.
No one's ready.
Not ready.
Start your virtual machines. Come on.
start your engines.
Start your engines.
That's what I'm doing right now.
All right. You got a minute. So while that's going, a lot of navigation on computers that people do all the time is through, say, like a file explorer. Most people are just used to clicking on the icons or the names. But this is actually no different, just doing it from the command line, so you guys can't see that. Oh. It's not doing what I thought it would do.
Control-Shift-Plus.
That was Control-Shift+. Alright. If you guys can squint, you can see down here,
Just open up another terminal.
when I open up a folder, my terminal is smart enough to follow where I'm going. Not all distributions do this. But, you know, going through a directory via the terminal is just the same as browsing it. And then you can, you know, list what's in your folder. I can see the folder name that's right there. You'll just have to trust me if you're sitting far away. Alright.
It's also in blue, which is like the worst
Yeah.
default color for any files to be listed in. I hate it.
So, this is my like user home directory. Can you guys even see that on the back? Can you, if you want, you can close the window. The shade. Yeah.
Can you change your
My color?
terminal colors?
No.
Like breeze?
Make it an even darker blue.
How's that?
Harder to see.
Yeah, I don't think I have any easy way of changing my colors.
Instead, just make the background tan.
I'm not going to change my settings for one quick demo.
Change it.
All right. So most terminals will have some kind of intelligent coloring system. All my blue things are folders, which is really helpful because you guys can't see them. But all my normal files usually appear as white or green, which means I can actually run them as programs. So, for example, I think Ghidra I can run. Nope, that's the wrong Ghidra directory. All right. So, yeah, I can just go through folders pretty easy. As you can see, most computers, most terminals have tab completion on them, which means if you type a partial file name, such as the folder extensions right here, if I say cd to change directory into extensions and I just type in the ex tab, it should autocomplete it. Not all terminals do that, but most of them do. So the other useful commands are pwd, which will print where you currently are. So that'll print your entire folder browsing location, folder location.
Working directory.
Yeah, your working directory. Yes, print working directory. Prints your working directory. Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, most distributions, and really specifically Bash, will print out this whole line right here. Mac actually has a Bash terminal on it that does not print out that line by default, so pwd can be helpful for you if you're doing that. ls will list your files in your current directory. So you can actually see that color blue, hopefully. Yeah. If you want to rename something, you have to move it to a new file. So if you move hello with one L to hello with two L's with the same file extension, that just moves the file to the new name. And then if you want to go to a different folder, you just cd. Some of the fun cd commands. Cd by itself sometimes takes you right back to your home directory. So you see I've gone back to tilde. Oh, that's not it.
Is it tilde?
Tilde. Yeah, so you can also cd tilde. It just takes you back there. So if I go cd tilde, no, that's not right. That's usually shorthand for your home directory, which is if you pwd on Unix systems /home and then your username. Although certain single user systems might not even have a home, so like Android phones, you just don't have a user profile. Or you do, but it's not quite the same. So.
Well, bang bang. And this stuff isn't like the most interesting right away, but it's also like extremely important to know.
Yeah, it's not like super.
This isn't cyber sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot more to it than this, but this is like 80% of what you'll do if you use a terminal constantly. And if you want to delete a file, it's RM for remove. And if you want to remove a directory, it's RR for recursive. And then once again, tab usually autocompletes whatever you're trying to type. So other notes, just a slash in terms of file directory is the root of the drive. So this is like C : on Windows, and just like the top level directory. On Linux, all your drives will be mounted onto the same file system. So it looks a little weird, but that is like the top level folder. And then root is actually not the same thing as the root right here. That means like the admin equivalent user. Root has all permissions on Linux regardless of what like the files actually say 90% of the time. So that as root, let me just switch over to root. SE. So on, let's see, there's a directory called root in your root, which I can't get to as my normal user. But if I do sudo and then I do se to start a session, which is just another shell as root, i.e. like an admin command prompt on Windows, I can go into root now. So, there's Eclipse in there.
Why don't you Eclipse?
I don't know. All right. So multiple drives, when you mount them, will be put into /media or /mount, depending on how your setup's done. That's usually just like a default convention. You can actually put them wherever you want with the mount commands. And if you want to see where they are, lsblk for list block will show you all of your disks, all of your partitions, and where they're currently stored.
I thought it was list bulk.
Is it bulk?
Do what is.
List block devices. What's wrong with you, Aaron?
I don't know. I've never had to look at that.
Yeah. So if you want to know what command is, you can obviously sometimes type in what is. But if you want more in-depth, you can do man for manual, lsblk, and this gives you like a really long description of what this tiny function does.
And at the bottom of the manuals are sometimes straight up examples of how to use the command,
Yeah.
which honestly I find the most helpful.
Yeah, I don't think this one has any, because you
This
just
one
type
doesn't
it.
have any?
Very straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Are you bleeding?
No?
Right here?
Oh. Oh.
Oh, what is that?
A burn.
Oh. Is that from your arm getting cut up again?
Feel judged.
You've been judged? It's stroke time. All right. So every device that you actually connect to your machine, like a USB drive or a printer or like a network card, will actually appear as in /dev for devices. This goes with this weird convention that everything on a Unix system is a file. So whereas Windows might have this abstract like registry entry for a device that you can find in Device Manager, on Linux you can just go to, let's see, go to dev and then you can list out all your devices. So I have memory bandwidth, whatever that is. These are terminals. I don't know why I have so many. Yeah, I have an I2C device somewhere. Where?
FD.
FD. What is FD?
It's a directory there.
Where am I going?
It's a symlink.
Yeah, it's a symlink, but that's standard output and input.
Oh yeah.
and you can just cat things straight to the terminal.
I know TTY usually like Arduino devices will show up as that, and you can just like
Yeah,
print
so
data straight to
TTY
them.
stands for, I think it's teletype, which basically means terminal, but like a fake one, is a logically simulated one. So a lot of programs will try to allocate those from themselves, so if you have a bunch of stuff ready, you might see more of those. Also, if you plug in a like USB to serial device, that might come up as a USB TTY. So all kinds of fun notes. And then, as I said, tilde is usually a shortcut for home usernames. If you cd tilde, it'll take you right there. And my username is Christopher, so it just took me to home Christopher. Oh, go back. And then other things worth of note: if you have programs installed on your machine, usually their actual like binaries are in the /bin or sbin directory. Sometimes it's /usr/bin, which is like the more user level programs. But 9 times out of 10, they're just in bin. etc is usually like your configuration files for your different programs. So I don't know, if you had like Apache web server installed, you would have probably a directory called etc/apache2, I think is what it's called, maybe .d for directory. And it would have all your config files in it. /proc is for your processes, so if you're actually running a program, you can just introspect it through the command line, which is really weird, especially for Windows users. So these are all the programs that are running on my machines. These are like the logical representations of them mapped to the hard drive somehow. Not to the hard drive, to the file system. So there's this imaginary one called proc self, I think.
Proc
Yeah.
CMD line.
CMD line. So CMD line is the command that you used to start the program, and then self is actually a special one that returns to the program that you called it from. So you can see I ran cat proc self command line, and it just told me I ran cat proc self command line. So not very exciting.
PS.
Or yeah, PS. So if you want to see more processes, PS will show you what's currently running in your terminal by itself. But if you want to see a lot more, like what's all in your system, PS AUX gives you a whole lot. Most people look at this through a program called Top, or the fancier version is HTOP. So this is like your equivalent of Task Manager on Windows. You just navigate with the arrow keys.
If you don't have HTOP installed, it's probably an app install HTOP.
Yeah. So you can sort. You can sort and search, and then if you want to kill a program, you just do F9. I don't know what any of these are, so I'm not going to kill them.
HTOP is super helpful.
Yeah. And then if you need more help, as I said, man for man mule page. If you just type in man in the program name, you should have a somewhat okay documentation on it. It'll work for like maybe 90% of programs. Sometimes it's out of date, but usually it's pretty good if there's a manual page for it. You can actually find the manual page for the manual, which is man.
Fucking manualception.
Yeah. So you can just navigate that with up keys, arrow keys. Yeah. And then if your program doesn't have a manual page, 9 times out of 10, it'll have a help directive on it. So for example, Docker probably has a man page. Yeah, of course it does. But if you do Docker help, you usually get a smaller and more succinct help message. So usually a combination of the two can help you figure out a lot of stuff really quickly. And man also documents the entire kernel. So if you ever have a question about like, what does this random C function do? You just type in man in the C function, and it gives you like a brief description, what you need to import to use it, an example of like what it returns, and then I think fork has some good examples in it. Yeah. So this is like one of maybe thousands of functions. Yeah. So I have almost 10,000 manual entries I can read. So as you install more programs, that usually bloats up pretty quickly. So installing useful software and updates. Package managers are like your app store, and that's how you install things on Linux distributions. So Debian actually has one called apt, which is APT, which is short for aptitude, which is long for apt, which is an entirely different program than the original app that we're talking about. So if you want to see what that does, you can just type in apt, and it usually like gives you your help message versus just quitting. So to see what programs you can download and update what updates you have available. It's update, which will always fail because you have to do it as the admin, because normally your regular user on a Linux system is not allowed to update or install new software. So for most systems that's sudo, but for the Debian boxes it's su, and then you just type it by itself, and you type in your password and it gives you a error message. I might not have this configured on my machine.
If you haven't used package managers before, getting used to package managers at first is hard, but oh my god, it is so much better than like clicking around a fucking GUI and trying to install something.
Yeah, so on the Debian boxes that we had from last week, that'll be su, but on Ubuntu, like my actual machine is, it'll just be sudo se if you want a shell, or you can just do sudo and then run a single command after that as the parameter. So apt update. These are all the websites that I'm downloading software from. You see most of that's Ubuntu, but at the top I had like Microsoft and Google for Google Chrome. Signal's on there. A bunch of other ones. I think Docker's in there somewhere.
And just a heads up, if you're using Kali Linux on campus, by default you won't be able to run that because the school has that blocked.
Yeah, so here's a list of all the packages that I can update right now. I just ran this like maybe 3 hours ago. So
to add on to Cliff's comment, you can get around that by doing apt edit -sources and change your mirror to mirrors.ocf.berkeley.edu, because for some reason that's not blocked.
EDUs are whitelisted.
So all it is this is a package manager. It pulls from a certain website. That website is hosting the packages, and there's different mirrors. So the official Kali Linux mirror has everything, but you know, another college, university, organization is also hosting all of Kali Linux, and you can just pull packages from them instead. So it gets into the whole idea of repos and
When we get a static ID.
oh man, we can go deep into that.
yeah, so if you want to upgrade all of your packages after that, after you've done update, you just do sudo apt upgrade. I think I'm already in root, so I'm not going to do sudo. It'd be weird. And it'll just ask you if you actually want to do that, because it usually takes some time and it's over network. So if you're doing this like over a mobile connection, which how? But okay. And then it'll just kind of chug away and update in the background. And it usually, it does actually lock other users from doing this at the same time. So you don't like try to install the same version of a piece of software over itself twice. It'll freak out. And if you actually interrupt this, there's another command that'll tell you to run after that because you've broken it. It might, yeah, make some big issues in the future.
Yeah, if your app updating or upgrading, it's not a good idea.
Updating is usually like safe, but not recommended to cancel. But if you're upgrading, you gotta let that finish because it's like copying a bunch of stuff over your hard drive. Yeah. All right. So that's how you get useful software. If you need to find something, you can usually just search for, something related to it. Like if you just apt search Python, you'll get a bunch of stuff. But if you want to see like this specific Python package, you just do apt show Python. It's still updating. All right. That was probably a mistake. Apt show Python. And this does not require you to be admin or root. So this is like all the information on the Python package that I can download. Priority optional, so I don't really need Python to run my OS, but if I want it, it's there. It actually should tell me which version of Python this is. Yeah, so this is Python 2.7 or 15. And there's Python, apt show Python, and if I don't know which Python package I want to look at, I can just smash tab, and it'll ask me which one of the 6,000 you want to look at, and I will say yes, all of them. These are all the Python packages that I think Ubuntu just ships by default. Most of these you can install through Python's language-specific package manager, which is pip, which will just do it nicer and probably more up-to-date than your distribution has package-wise, because it's the actual like Python source code. But it's pretty much the same regardless. Let's see if that other one finished. So when you finish updating, this little, or upgrading, this little bar should go away, and it should be done. It was doing so well until I switched back to it.
Just move on.
All right. So Vim, this is a wonderful text editor. Cliff actually has probably the best Vim rice which is just like the best config for one we've ever seen. So to use Vim, oh my god.
Vim is a text editor, by the way.
Yeah.
It's like a Microsoft Word for Linux.
And heads up, if you want to learn how to use Vim and don't want to have to look up every single thing, there is a program by default that's installed with Vim called Vim Tutor. Should be available if you have Vim on your machine, and it just gives an instruction manual on how to use Vim.
Yeah.
And if you're just getting used to Linux and you don't have the bandwidth to learn Vim right now, you can also use Nano.
Yeah, Nano's a lot easier, but Vim's more professional. So this is
Also, you can make Vim look a lot nicer.
yeah, this isn't like super nice like Cliff's is, but this is more or less what Vim looks like. So there's a lot of different editors you can use from the command line. So this is Nano. It's a little bit more user friendly because it has all of its like commands right down here at the bottom.
Like for Vim, if you want to start writing into a file, you have to hit I first, then start typing. I mean, it's really efficient once you get used to it.
Yeah.
But Nano doesn't have that.
If you need to do something from the command line, probably like Nano to start with. But if you're feeling more adventurous, oop, what have I done?
You're recording a
This
Mac.
isn't Vim.
I can't even tell you how many times I've had to open Nano and use Vim commands to get out.
Yeah. So just some quick hints for people who try to use Vim in the future. The way you exit it is you hit escape key, :Q, and then you hit enter because that's quit. That will not actually quit if you've not saved anything. If you really need to quit without saving, you need to put an exclamation point after that. But if you want to save before you quit, it's WQ after your colon. So
You'll probably have to Google how to exit Vim.
yeah, it's a good one.
Everyone does.
When you Google
Or I should say
Vim,
DuckDuckGo.
there's like 8 million of those, so it's a very common thing.
Yeah.
There's also the joke how you generate a gig of random data. You drop someone in Vim who doesn't know how to use it.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Imagine.
So for Linux distributions, there's a whole lot of them. This is the Wikipedia graph that's somehow auto-generated about like every single one. We only really care about 6 right now.
We only care about Ubuntu CE.
Ubuntu Christian Edition. Yeah. So Debian's what we installed last week. That's a pretty simple base OS. It's user-friendly enough to get started with. Ubuntu probably would have been better for us to do last week, and that's my fault. So this is Debian, except it's specifically meant to be user-friendly. So, my bad. And then there's also Kali, which is also Debian-based. So more or less, they all act the same on the command line. They just have different things packaged with them by default. You can actually, if you really wanted to, you could go through a Debian install and like very slowly turn it into Ubuntu, just by installing package by package. Yeah, same thing with Kali.
You
So
can turn Kali back into Ubuntu.
yes, or you could uninstall everything from Kali, slowly turning it back into Debian. You should not do that because it would take quite a while. Cliff, why? Okay.
Just to see if I could.
Yeah, so Kali's like the hacking distribution. It comes with a lot of tools pre-installed. Some more Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or RHEL, is a super stable server distribution, so a lot of corporations will use that to host their web applications. That's Fedora-based. Fedora is another distribution. CentOS is another server-meant distribution for large enterprises. Enterprises.
is really popular in large companies.
Yeah.
It's very stable.
That one's
They don't change
ridiculously
the kernel
stable.
often.
Yeah. Debian and Ubuntu, I've never had major issues with crashing. I've had like maybe 2 crashes in like 3 years. But like you can probably go a CentOS box on the internet for like years and years and live update it without ever having to reboot it.
They separate the kernel updates to really far, and keep it really far back.
Yeah.
And make sure that everything's on long-term support.
Yeah, so Arch is like the Linux hard mode. That's what Cliff uses. Is there actually an installer for Arch, or does it just say like
Yes,
have
there
fun?
is.
Okay.
It's not as easy to use. The graphic installer is just trash.
Okay. Yeah, so if you want to argue with like every portion of a Linux operating system until they work, or you give up, try Arch. It's not good. All right, that's all the slides I have. Can show off my rice. Just kidding. Cliff, do you want to show your Vim compared to mine?
I will.
Okay.
Absolutely do that.
Just to remind everyone, this is what my sad Vim looks like. I have tabs up at the top, and I can open a new tab, and that's like really it. So how do I close this? Yeah.
He's calling Q, Chris.
Now prepare yourself to see Cliff's
Yeah,
Vim.
so once you guys get used to doing stuff on the bash command line, you get comfortable with all this, just starter getting into cyber stuff, and then we'll be able to really drill down and get into some cooler topics.
Very useful way to do that is over the wire.
Yeah, I posted that in Slack. Did anyone else do over the wire 4 games? Has anyone done it? No, a couple. All right, I've done it. It's great. It's really great.
Yeah, it should be loading. Yay, there it is. Okay, let me.
So Cliff has probably spent like the last 3 days in the lab just making his Vim ridiculously nice.
Okay, so this is gonna be really, really big. Might need to actually close that out a little bit. All right, so here's this is the Linux kernel, like Chris said not to download earlier. I did. So here's basic Vim. So I want to go find a file called internal.h that I know is in a directory called fs. So I'm just going to search for it.
Vim does not come with this functionality.
So now I have that open, and so this is a C file, and I want to know what's in it. So I have a thing for that, and this shows every function that's in here. I can just go to one, hit enter, it'll jump to that function.
Jesus Christ.
Now, if I want to find out where a function is defined, I can usually do that also with the keystroke, or where it's used. And then I can just jump right back to the definition. This is a ridiculous amount of writing. Do not do this. I warn you, it's a bad idea.
Package it all up, put it on Git.
It is already on Git. You can download this and install it in under 5 minutes.
Rice Master Clip.
Speed race.
But yeah, that's what you can do if you don't, or if you want to spend a dumb amount of time with Vim.
That's just his Vim. There's more.
Sorry.
Aaron, what else is he doing?
Anything else?
There was something else.
Were you gonna do Docker stuff?
Oh yeah. I don't want to do that.
That's a lot.
It's a lot to do right now. We'll do that next week.
So
I have. So, just to close, this isn't like super exciting to begin with, but once you can efficiently move around a Linux installation purely through the command line and start installing things like, usually if you type in a program, it'll give you a suggestion. What do I not have installed? Give me an example.
do you have Ranger installed?
Ranger. Unfortunately, yes. All right, let's get rid of that. Sudo apt remove
Purge.
Ranger purge. Yeah.
Get rid of it.
So let's pretend I didn't have that installed. If I just Ranger's a file browser that's inspired by Vim. Let's say I wanted to use that and I didn't know I didn't have it installed. Typically Bash will actually give you the command just to install it back onto your system. So once you can just do that. Just everything you can develop becomes that much easier. I already showed you that. Oh, what's this one obscure C function do? Exec. This is all the functions with which you can run another program in C, and they're all thoroughly documented right here. It took me 0 seconds to find that because I vaguely knew what the function was called. Even if I didn't, I could just exec tab. It gives me all the specific implementations of it. So cool. You can develop on or just any Linux distribution. You can develop on pretty much anything stupidly fast. Yeah. If you go back to a Windows machine, it's just so incredibly slow compared. It's not good.
I refuse to do C development on a Windows machine.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Oh, I fucked up my internet. That's what happened.
Real good.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? All right.
All right. Is anyone ready for some pizza and Smash Bros?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what we're gonna be doing after this. In
Yep.
the lab. When's pizza coming? 8. All right. So pizza's coming at 8 to the lab. We'll have 2 TVs. Feel free to come by. Thanks for coming out, guys. I know these first couple meetings.